This is the ABQ Business Podcast with your host, Jason Rigby. Each week we'll interview visionary business leaders to inspire the creative power and spirit that's in every entrepreneur. Discussing strengths, weaknesses, strategies, systems, and the problems we can all solve together for a new future for local small business.
What is up, everyone? Super excited about the show today. We're going to talk about a little purple guy. That's going to be really interesting. There's a little icon. That's a little purple guy. I've got Jon Schram. He is the CEO and an IT support expert. And I know we've talked about IT in the past and COVID, and we'll get a little bit into that because I think it's really important from work from home IT security. But what I really want to get in today is how he marketed and founded the Purple Guys. He's been growing Purple Guys, a tech company, since 2001. It began in the Midwest, and now it's the premier provider of IT support services. It's a 7-digit business. It's fast growing, and it helps hundreds of companies grow by solving their IT problems, especially with the stress-free. And we all know that as business owners, how stressful IT could be. And then their tech support is unreal. It's bulletproof. Jon and his wife, Jill, have 3 children, and they founded 2 businesses together. Jon, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, no, thank you. I kind of want to start from the beginning, if you don't mind, kind of your story when you first started getting this entrepreneurial bug. Was it as a child? Was it a teenager? Was it after college?
It was kind of as a child. So a little bit about my upbringing. I grew up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and a lot of people don't know Michigan actually has 2 pieces, but I grew in the upper part of that, kind of in the middle of the woods. I lived on 40 acres of woods and went to a 2-room schoolhouse my first 2 years of school. And then our school district merged with the local Air Force base. There was an Air Force base up there when I was growing up. It's since closed. But so in 2nd grade, I got bussed onto the base and my world changed. I grew up in this tiny little community in the woods of northern Michigan, but I wound up growing up with people from all over the world because of the Air Force Base. So just the diversity of people that I interacted with, hearing about all these, crazy, awesome places that people had lived and moved around the whole planet, kind of got that bug of, well, I want to go out and do and see and explore. And I don't know if that's specifically entrepreneurial, but it definitely got me thinking that, there's something bigger out there for me to do. And then, graduated, wound up going to school at the University of Michigan. And my culture shock there was not the diversity of the student body. It was the size of the student body. Mm-hmm, yeah. The town I grew up in had 2,000 people in it, and my dorm had 2,500 people in it. It was awesome to just be in that, just the energy that was there. And then my first job was as a consultant. And what that really meant was I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up, and consulting sounded like I didn't have to decide. And I really didn't. So got my feet wet at Price Waterhouse before they merged with Price Waterhouse Coopers, or with Coopers and Lybrand. So it was just Price Waterhouse at the time. Traveled around doing project work. And that was really where I kind of solidified I can do this. I can do something on my own. And I was a consultant in the IT world back then. It was actually MIS. It was Management Information Systems when I first got started. But saw what people needed, and these were big businesses we dealt with, and then had the opportunity to work in some smaller businesses. And my wife and I launched our first company, which was really an IT consulting firm. It was focused on the Fortune 500, Fortune 1000, Fortune 5000 companies here in Kansas City, which is where I live now. And it grew like crazy. But that was my first endeavor, was basically an IT staffing firm focused on providing high quality consultants to companies that had projects that had to get done. I was definitely the driver of hey, we should start a business. My wife was phenomenal at sales, but really had no real desire to own her own company. And I'm more of a process engineering type person. That's actually my degree, is industrial engineering. So, I came up with the idea, and we launched that business, and it was wildly successful. So that was my first endeavor and kind of how I got there. And, I think my background played a big role in that.
So when you were consulting and you were going into, I imagine these firms, what were some of the things that you were seeing that, I mean, because you had to see things and then say, this is wrong. There needs to be a business for this. Are there this weakness? I know when I start my business, I can focus on this and it will be successful. What are some of the things that you began to see when you were consulting in business?
The consulting side of stuff that I did, and this goes way back, so it kind of dates me. I actually taught people how to use a mouse and what drag and drop meant and what drop down menus were. Uh, so a lot of it was around just the communication of what is the technology and the skill sets required both to make it work, but also help people understand how to make it work. And that was kind of that early on. There's always things that are new and changing in the technology space, and the core issue that we solved when we were in the IT staffing world was the skill sets required sometimes to translate the business need into what the technical solution is, and sometimes it was the pure technical skill to make the solution work. And just finding those folks because it changes so fast. If you've got an internal IT department and you're a large company, keeping your team members trained and up to speed on everything that's new every 6 months is about impossible. So you have to outsource. You've got to pull in those outside resources. So the problem we solved was having a pool of those outside resources available for the needs of the Kansas City metro market and marrying those up. And the secret sauce to that business was I looked at what are the skills that are most commonly in demand and found the people that had those skills as opposed to the outliers. And it kind of ties in with my current company being named the Purple Guys, but there was a term in the IT staffing world. It was called searching for a purple squirrel. If somebody wanted this really unique skill set that they were willing to pay a whole bunch of dollars for if you could find it, but it was so unique that it was crazy hard to find. And as soon as that project would be done, there's not a big enough demand for it. So we intentionally avoided purple squirrel type needs, but sought out the core skill sets that we knew were going to be in the highest demand in the marketplace. And that's what helped us grow that business.
No, I love that. And I know you said you have like a process engineering brain. And as a CEO, and I like what you said, help make it work. Like, how can I help make this work? Have you took, and I imagine that's what kind of that philosophy that you took. How did you use that? Because I think the reason I'm saying this, John, I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that have the same brain, that process engineering brain systems, and they think they need to be visionary, or they think that they need to be, they're trying to be somebody that they're really not.
Yeah.
Where help make it work. I mean, how practical and logical is that?
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the what I do now. So our company now, we do small business IT support, which is making servers run and making sure there's good antivirus and data backups are going, and just kind of the nuts and bolts of maintaining small business networks. And I can't do any of that. So what my value add to this business when we started it was I understood what small business needed. And actually how I got into this business was I outsourced my IT support internally to a small two-man shop when I had the IT staffing firm. That's how I actually got introduced to the business I'm in now. And I liked the model so much that when I launched this business, I bought that company. It was a two-man shop. I essentially gave them full-time employment. But I did technically acquire the company. But then that was a two-person firm was the genesis of the Purple Guys way back when. So it was the source of this was the need in my last business. And then, it took me a bit to actually understand what the need is that we were solving. I was looking for IT support. And in the first year after I acquired them and started doing this business, I thought we were just purely an IT support company. But what I realized and what's allowed us to grow was we're a customer service organization that happens to deal with technology.
I love that.
Which changed the way we hired. It changed the way we marketed. It changed the messaging. And it changes the interaction with our clients, and it also changes the mindset of the people that work at Purple Guys.
So when I'm going to kind of go into this a little bit. This is interesting. So, like a lot of people are saying, nowadays you're a tech company first and then you're this. You said because, and I want you to get into this because you've talked about this before, is customer service issues with IT and how you decide to say, hey, we're going to double down and this is going to be the culture.
Yeah. Well, and anybody that's ever dealt with an IT help desk, it's usually not a pleasant memory.
Right.
And I mean, a while back, there was actually a Saturday Night Live skit about it because it's so true. And I didn't want to be that skit. And so what we did as a company was we made it part of our bonus structure, customer service and how we measure it. And we're fanatical about it. So we train on it. We pay on it, we recruit on it, we sell on it. It is a core tenet of the business itself. And I think there's sometimes when our staff is like, all right, enough about the customer service already. We do actually have technical skills that are valuable in the marketplace, which is totally true. They do have to have the technical skills to make the stuff work. But without the bedside manner and the customer service skills, you don't get to keep your clients because
Right.
you're going to annoy them, and people don't like to be frustrated and annoyed. And that's kind of how we came up with the tagline: is we want to remove stress. We want it to be a stress-free experience as much as it can, because technology itself can be stressful when it's not working. But once we get plugged in and we own the issue, and you've handed it off, and we can take it and run with it, that's where the philosophy comes in. That's where the mindset comes in, that, hey, it's about the person sitting behind the keyboard. That's where we're interacting. We're not interacting with the technology. We have to make that work, but we've got to interact with the human being sitting in the chair. And doing that well is actually harder than fixing the technology. But doing that well also leads to referrals and more business, but referrals of both employees and new customers.
Now, how did because you would think like a CEO that would be more sanguine, outgoing, emotionally based type CEO would love this customer centric approach. How as you as a process engineering brain came up with this? Was it just because you saw how poor IT was? So you're like, I can create a system in this. How did you come up with this customer centric model?
Well, when I was a customer, I experienced a little bit of the, hey, I'll get back to you, but I don't really get back to you. Hey, I'll fix that, but not really closing the loop from a communication perspective. So there were some pieces I realized when I was the customer that I wanted to fix. But what really drove it home was feedback from our clients. And that's the market will tell you what it wants to buy. And the first couple of times that, I had great technical people, phenomenal skills, and I get the call from, the owner, because I'm the owner. I get the call from the other owners. Like, I don't ever want to talk to that person again. They were so rude. They were so this, they were so that. It only takes a couple of those phone calls to realize that, hey, we've got to focus on the customer service aspect of this first, because I know we fixed the issue because they were very competent and could fix the technology. But without the soft skills of customer service wrapped around it, it didn't matter. They were going to go find somebody else that they like to talk to more. So that's what really and that was very early on. And as we're growing the business, you don't want to lose any customers. All revenue is precious in those early days.
Yes.
So that really helped define that this was going to be one of the things that we could use to set ourselves apart. Again, the basic thing you think of when you think of tech support and having to call the help desk is not that it's going to be a pleasant experience. So I realized if I could make it a pleasant experience, it was going to set us apart in the marketplace.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever say that I've had an excellent experience with anything with IT. Most of the time it's just pulling. You're like, it's almost this view of like, yeah, I know more than you. You're dumb. I'm going to, I can fix this really fast. Let me take over your computer. Let's get this done. I got another ticket to do.
Yep. That is the typical experience, and we don't want to provide that experience. So it's making and it's hard. You've got to have enough people so you can take the appropriate amount of time. And we get busy. I mean, we're not perfect. We still mess up. Again, we're a bunch of people that still make mistakes. But overall, we all know what we're focused on and the experience that we're trying to achieve for everybody that calls in. And this, you touched on a little bit in the intro, the changing environment that happened in 2020 just made technology even more important for people to stay connected and plugged in. And I stress it at every one of our staff meetings that when we're supporting people now, and we're doing pretty much everything we did even pre-pandemic was remote, because it's just the most efficient way to get help right now. But we're now remotely supporting people that are sitting inside the four walls of their house. They're not in a business. So we're, our job done well puts that mom or a dad in a better mood because their stuff's working. So now they're in a better mood around their family and their home, as opposed to just being part of the business impact that we had before.
No, I can imagine that. Well, I wanted to kind of take a step back in that beginning. And I know you said that your wife and you started this company and, she was into sales, so really wasn't into starting it. I kind of want to get into, because I think this is really important now, because I'm hearing, I know we're having, small businesses struggle, but out of the struggle, I'm also seeing a lot of people starting new businesses, and they're starting from home with low overhead. So, to help my listeners, and there may be somebody out there and maybe they're recreating a new business or they're trying to refocus it and they're at home, they're with their family. What are some of the things like in the beginning with the family owned business? Like, did you have to convince your wife to do this, like in that beginning story, because she didn't want, it seemed like she didn't want to do it in the beginning?
It was, I would say, as a function of being a risk taker, we're probably equally risk takers on the scale. Neither one of us would be kind of off the deep end on taking risk.
Mm.
But she knew that her skill set was not in managing and running something. Her skill set was sales. So she had zero desire to manage anybody. And she will tell you, being a phenomenal salesperson, that she's also really hard to manage. But she's self-aware of that, at least. And so, I knew that when we had the talks about it, that was going to be my job. And I had to know that, she was going to make it rain no matter what, because that's what she's really good at. And I had to catch everything and make sure all the processes were in place, which I would say if someone out there is wanting to start a business, and specifically if they want to start a business with their spouse, that is a tricky road to go down.
I could imagine.
One of the things that I would strongly recommend, and we use it as a tool in our company, we use a personality profiling system called Culture Index. But there's a ton of them out there. And every one of the ones that we've ever taken, my wife and I are definitely an example of opposites attract. I have literally the complete opposite personality profile of my wife. So the good part about that is we didn't step on each other's toes in the business. She had her strengths, I had mine. We didn't really want to play in each other's sandbox. If you happen to be married to someone that does have similar strengths and weaknesses, I would be aware of that going in, that you might be stepping on each other's toes because you both want to play in the same sandbox. But for us, it was awesome. And when we first started, we would get up, we would work together. We obviously lived together. We were never apart. And that is the thing to know, that you really get to know somebody. I mean, you get to know somebody when you marry them anyway, but you see them at work, you see them at home, you're never apart. And that was that early on. But the good part was we complemented each other in terms of our skill set, and we divided and conquered, and we were hugely successful.
Yeah, and you used a word, and you said it plural, talks. So I imagine there had to be a lot of talking,
Yeah.
communicating, and like in the beginning, how did that go? Was it? I know you guys kind of said, okay, this is your sandbox, this is yours. You play in this, I'll play in that. But I mean, as far as like communication goes, and you guys just being together all the time, was it just hey, I'm feeling this way, or hey, I think this is direction. What do you think? Was it informal, or did you guys plan to have certain times when you go out to eat to talk, or how was that?
I would tell you that early on there was never an off. it was it
Oh,
was
right, right, right.
on for the first several years. Uh, and so the structure of, hey, let's talk about something other than business came probably in year three. uh, like those first 2 years, and for sure the first year were, and it was pre-kids. So that first business was, we didn't have any kids at the time. So it was just the two of us. We were heads down. We were working 70 hours a week each, which if you like what you're doing, doesn't matter. It just feels like fun. But it is 70 hours a week. So again, it's back to the starting a business is not a cakewalk. There's a lot of work that goes into it,
Mhm.
but I'm the planner. I wrote the business plan. I wrote the model of, I wrote the proposals and the documentation and all the stuff that went around so that, we could have the structure. So that's just what I do and how I'm wired, to create that framework. And then, she went out and sold all the relationships. So it was a great combination when we got this started.
Yeah, I could imagine. I mean, that seems like you said, I think the opposites attract is so important, because if you both are working 70 hours a week, you're together 7 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
You're constantly working, and both of you are arguing over the same exact description of what you're doing. I think that would be hugely important. Like any business partner would be to analyze, what are you going to play in? What am I going to play in? What are the tasks that you're going? Now, would you guys, because I'm really interested in this because I talk to so many friends that are kind of don't know how to bring it up to their spouse. Did you guys like just outline like, hey, I'm going to do this, or this, or she would be like, I know you're great at this. You handled this. I mean, obviously your relationship had to be good
Mm-hmm.
before you even started.
Yeah, well, the outline of who's going to do what was all me. It was the, hey, I want to start a business. She's like, awesome. Tell me what that looks like. uh, and so I wrote the business plan. I'm like, here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to start it. Here's how we're going to make money. Here's what I think what we can grow it to. Um, and she's like, great, let's do it. So that's part of her, trusting in me and having seen me do my consulting stuff when we were not working together. She's like, yeah, seems like you know what you're doing. And she's confident that she can get relationships and do the sales side of things. So I came up with the structure and the pricing model and everything else. And she knew what she was selling because I created that. Here's our product list, if you will. I mean, consulting services don't really have a product list, but just so she had a clear message that she could turn around and sell to the prospects. And we started executing on it, and just built over time. And the next big step in that start is your first hire. So then the dynamic changes all over again, because when it's just you, or just you and one other person, there's enough variables there. But once you start to have other employees and folks you got to interact with on a daily basis, that's a whole different level of complication.
Yeah, no, I could imagine. So I kind of want to move forward. So you and her started a business, and then because you guys started multiple businesses, right?
Yeah, yeah. This is Purple Guys is our latest iteration. It's been my longest employment anywhere, actually. But yeah, we had a IT staffing firm for 4 years, and then we started what is now Purple Guys, and this is our 20th year of business.
That is amazing. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah, John, I want to go into because one of the things with Purple Guys is it's like, where did you it just seems opposite of what an IT firm would be, a little purple like monster, like a little Monster Inc. guy. Where did you come up with the idea of purple and purple guys and the little guy that you made?
Well, the purple itself is an accidental brand. So my IT staffing firm, the only thing we had in that company that was purple was our logo.
Mm.
And I say this is my only one good marketing idea I ever really had was we had a purple logo, and I decided, all right, we're going to get company pens because every company has their own pen. And my idea was, well, I'm going to get it so it writes in purple because that's our corporate color. And so I had purple pens that wrote with purple ink that they just was our pens in the IT staffing firm, but everybody loved the pen. And I kept getting requests like, hey, can you bring some more of those pens? I love those purple pens. So when I started this business and I actually didn't care what we called it. I hired an ad agency to come up with a name. But my one requirement was we're going to have a purple logo because I'm keeping my purple pens. And so we started this business. Wasn't called the Purple Guys, but we did have the purple pens, had a purple logo. And 20 years ago, everything we did had to be done on site.
Right.
And we got logoed apparel for all of our staff that was going on site. But it was all different colors. And this is just another example of interacting with my wife. And so she sat in a meeting with one of our clients, and we had 4 or 5 of our team members in that meeting. And we all had a different colored logoed shirt on in the meeting. And we got done with the meeting, and we were walking back to the car. And my wife's like, that's just silly. We look like a bunch of Skittles. Can we just pick a team uniform? And so that was what caused me to take all of the shirts back that I had handed out and get everybody shirts in the corporate color, which was purple. So I didn't have a single shirt that was purple at the time, but I took all of them back, bought everybody purple shirts, and our customers, independent of each other, started saying, hey, the purple guys were here when we started showing up on site. And I am slow, but I'm not that slow. I listen to our customers. They're like, they're going to call us the purple guys. That's awesome. So we became the Purple Guys, and it has been a really fun brand since then. So that is the genesis of the name, and where purple originally started and how we became the Purple Guys. And then fast forward to a couple years ago, a really good family friend is a very creative, talented designer. And he thought that we needed some characters because it said Purple Guys. So it was actually his idea. His name's Todd Hoffman. He's got a company called Character Glue. And he came to us and said, hey, I think, and we've known him forever, and his wife, that we have been friends for a long time. And he just came up with the idea. He's like, hey, what do you think about having little characters as part of your marketing material? And so that's when we adopted that first little monster. And then we've got a whole family of Purple Guys now that we use from a marketing perspective. And if you think about it, it goes along with what we're trying to do. We're trying to take the stress and the scariness out of IT. So they're funny, they're cute, they're little characters. We've got little videos where they talk. But we take the fear and the scariness out of that IT conversation. We try to make people feel comfortable and not overwhelmed by their tech stuff. So, and it's kind of obvious we don't take ourselves too seriously because of it.
That's so awesome that you allowed and you listened. I think that's really important. You listen and you allowed your customers to define your brand. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people always want to, well, we need a logo first and we need a name. And then they just like, they're so solid on that because they get emotionally invested in it. And then you were like, no, we have the color purple. I love the purple pens. Those work because the customers love them. Yep. So, this customer centric approach, you can see it from the very beginning when you first started.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to stick with stuff that works. So if I can, I don't want to reinvent the wheel every time.
No, that's amazing. So now I want to kind of get into a little bit about, if you don't mind, some of the IT kind of, if we could get a little practical here with people that are working from home and businesses, small businesses, because that's what your customer base is.
Yep.
Small businesses that may say, you know what, Julie loves working at home. She's actually more productive. She can, take care of her kids and walk her dogs at 2 p.m. and she's working for me and she's doing great. And I think I'm just going to leave her at home. and then, Bill says, hey, I'd like to be a hybrid and go part-time in the office and then go, work part-time at home. What are you seeing as far as an IT perspective with people working from home now?
There was always a segment of the population, and it used to be mostly the sales segment that worked remotely and or worked from home. What we have seen now is the same stuff that allowed that job function to work well is the same thing everybody needs. And you need good stuff. So you need a good screen, a good keyboard, just working off a laptop that you took home. The ergonomics of that isn't great. If you're going to be actually on your systems and interacting, it needs to be a professional environment. So we've helped with everything from what monitors to buy, and the keyboard, the mouse, and walking people through setting that stuff up remotely. But that's one of the critical pieces is the environment. So quiet enough space, enough room to put basically your desk setup that you would have had in the office at home, and then the connectivity. Obviously a huge factor. So making sure you've got good, solid connectivity in your house. And we've learned a lot of supporting every flavor of connection you can have in your home network. Something we got to learn last year. We knew some of it before, but we've I think now touched pretty much every single possible combination. So good, fast internet, the right stuff at home. And then the flexibility side of it is, if you're going to be hybrid, are you going to fund, as the company owner, equipment in both places? Do you lean on your team members to supply some of their own stuff at home and you supply the stuff in the office? So those are some of the decisions you got to make, because if you really want people to be productive, they got to have the right environment. And if they're going to be coming back and forth, it's really, monitors aren't really that expensive. An extra keyboard's not that expensive. One of the things a lot of people forget about is your chair, because an ergonomically correct desk chair is actually really, really important. And the kitchen chair, you can sit in that for a couple hours and you realize this isn't meant to be sat in all day. So just those types of things from a business perspective, and then there's security issues and those type things from a technical perspective as well. But you also want to be attentive to, how do you keep people connected? How do you make them feel like they're part of a team when they're always remote? And do you insist that everybody put their camera on? Do you insist that people actually get dressed for work? It's a whole nother discussion, because when they were coming to the office, that was really not even something you had to talk about. People obviously came dressed for work because they were going to work. But in the age of, you can roll out of your bed in your pajamas and go to work, do you insist that people take their pajamas off and put some work clothes on? That's a personal preference as well as a business question that, as an owner, you're gonna wanna address, because if they never have to be on camera and they're just kind of in a service role behind the scenes, do you care? But you want to address those things as well.
Yeah, so I think it's so interesting how, I was talking to a business owner the other day, and they were like, this person really loves to work at home, and I don't know if I want them to or not. They were kind of going through that whole process, and then they're like, like you said, they're working on a laptop. I think this is hugely important what you said, and I want people to understand this. They were working on a laptop, their own, and I have their computer at the office. There has to be this seamless transition if you want them to come in once a week or whatever. And, and this is what I told them. I was like, yeah, it may cost you $2 or $3 grand to get them set up at their home. But like you said, that whole idea of you investing in your employee, if you trust the employee and they're producing at home, to me, what does it matter if they're at the office or if they're at home? Like you said, real estate agents have been doing this. Salespeople have been doing. They've been doing this for so long. So why do we feel like we have to have the control? If you know what I mean?
Yeah, I just think that there's things about it and parameters and decisions you have to make as a company, and we're actually doing that right now. We're mostly still at home, and mostly because people like to be at home. We are as productive, if not slightly more productive, with people working remotely than they were when they were all in the office. But we're trying to figure out, all right, is this forever? Um, and
Yes,
just,
and that's a question I think people need to, as long as productivity is up and
yeah.
people's work-life balance and their attitude is positive.
Mhm.
For me, I'm all for it with our employees. So, everybody's working from home, and we're a tech company, so that's easy. But um, for us, it's very, very simple. One of the things that I had talked to another business owner, and they talked about, well, if you're working from home, you don't just have to hire people in your local area. You can bring diversity in and hire people from other, parts of. You can go to other countries, or you can
Yeah.
stay, in the United States and hire somebody from Chicago and somebody from Fort Lauderdale and somebody from Dallas.
Yeah.
So you have that ability also to be able to have a bigger pool. But I think my thing is, I think this is going to be a competitive advantages for businesses that tell people that they can work from home. I think people will quit jobs that they have to go into the office and will sign up and even take a little bit less pay to be able to work from home.
I think you are correct. I also have been looking at the possibility of, we kind of want to stay in the central time zone because of what we do and the support we provide. But other than that, kind of expanding our recruiting area. We've very much proven that we can do this remotely. So it opens up new avenues from a growth standpoint, specifically on the staffing side, and adding new team members. Um, but we also have a lot of really good measurements around productivity. So a big chunk of what we do is run a help desk. So we know how many requests come in and how many people work on and how long they spent. Because that's just part of the core of our business. So it makes it really easy to measure productivity across the team, whether they're in the office or working remotely. And not every job function has that level of detail that you can measure on a day-to-day basis. So those are some of the things people should consider as well. Is that, how do you measure the productivity of your team? I mean, you definitely want to trust people that they're doing the right thing, but how do you know? How do you measure it? What's the dashboard look like that you're using to measure that productivity when they're not there in the office?
Yeah, and I think, because I had talked to somebody about this, the time zone thing is can be for you or it can be against you. But being able to have that 3-hour swing, and then, now you have people that are working maybe 3 hours earlier or 3 hours later.
Yeah.
And so now you can extend your environment, whatever it may be. I mean, you have help desks, but whatever it
Yeah.
may be, that may be able to give the customer wins on that, because that
Yep.
person's just working a normal 9 to 5 job at
Yep.
home, but they're 3 hours ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. It does create that option.
Yeah, and so I think that's really cool. Well, John, I want to. This is my last question, and we'll close this out. And this is something that I think will be a help to a lot of people. You've been in business for 20 years. That's crazy. There's probably 1% of businesses that last 20 years and stay in the same business as an entrepreneur. What are some of the things some takeaways, some wisdom, if we want to use that word, that you've learned in these 20 years that you could leave with maybe somebody that's 3-5 years into this?
One of the critical things for me is that I've always known that I don't know what I don't know. I'm a huge fan of mastermind groups. So
Yes.
whether that's a paid professional mastermind group, like the Vistages of the world, or an informal one where you just get together with other business owners, I think that is hypercritical to long-term success. And it's been hypercritical to me. I'm in a group right now. I've never not been in one. I'm in one right now that's based here in Kansas City called Acumen, and it's phenomenal. So I get together once a month with 13 other CEOs, and we have serious discussions about our businesses, because you want to have a business ROI, but also about the life that you lead as an owner. It can be very lonely. You can't have certain conversations with your teammates. Some of them would just really freak them out. So you want to have those. You want to have a safe space and other people you can bounce those ideas off of. So that would be one major thing that I would say has been critical to my success and longevity is having that team of people that I can lean on, and a regular cadence of, I know I'm going to see them every month, and I can bring an issue to that group. They know me, they know my history, they know my story, they know what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. And they will tell me in sometimes a very brutal fashion whether I'm going down the right path or not. But you need that to survive. And then we already touched on this, is the relationship at home, your spouse. You got to be on the same page. And right now, my wife doesn't work actively in the business day to day at all. And that transition kind of happened when we started having kids. And that's for anybody that's gone through that. Having children is a major life transition, even when you don't own a business. But owning the business creates a whole different level of, wait a minute, how are we going to deal with all this? So just making sure you make time to stay connected to your spouse. Because I've also been married for 26 years. And that's another thing that's not all that common in the country today, is a long-term marriage. So I think there's probably some similarities to staying married and also being able to run the same business for 20 plus years.
No, I love that, Jon. And if somebody wants to, look at Purple Guys, or maybe they have some questions, or they want to inquire, are you reaching out past Kansas City, or?
Yeah, we are basically coast to coast in terms of customers that we can provide. We actually are staffed 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Central Time, so we've already expanded our hours. But we've got customers in 14 states right now and 9 different countries. Most of them are headquartered here in the Midwest, and they have branch offices. But pretty much anywhere in the U.S., if someone was in the UK, that would be a little bit of a struggle because we're not staffed overnight. But pretty much continental U.S. and the customers that we support, 20 employee company to a 200 employee company. That's our typical range of customers that we support.
So if I have an entrepreneur listening and they're in that range and they're kind of curious about Purple Guys, what's the best way for them to reach out and get some information?
Best way to connect is our website, purpleguys.com. We're also on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. Happy to connect with other business owners. Always, I love the business of business, which is why I love this business. I get to learn. There's just so many ways people can add value and make a living. It's fascinating to me. But purpleguys.com is the best way to get kind of all the main contact info and reach out to us. And then feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I am Purple Guy on LinkedIn, so it's my official Purple Guy title, or my LinkedIn title.
That's so awesome. I love your logo. I love your name. It's so easy. I'm sure everybody will go and look and hop on that, and I encourage them to do that. Well, thanks, Jon. I appreciate you being on the ABQ Business Podcast, and we'll be sending an email out, and I'll make sure I include those links for Purple Guys. So thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us on the Albuquerque Business Podcast. And thanks to our sponsor, RigbyDigital.com. Make sure to subscribe and share. And go to abqpodcast.com. Get show notes, resources, and links to everything we talked about today to help you navigate your journey as an entrepreneur and business owner.